Am I dating this person because they're touching my heart or because they're touching my wounds?
Ooh.
That's really what it comes down to.
If we as women rose up from the shackles of scarcity and were to tell men on the first date that they're not feeling it, we would not have this level of dating app fatigue. We would not.
And one thing in particular I want to highlight is what happens in the dating apps that is so different from what a real life experience would be.
Yes.
And that is what I believe is premature intimacy. It is this pressure that we feel of, I've never met you before, but this is a first date and you could potentially be the one.
Right.
That doesn't happen anywhere else.
In the real world, there's a progression that's lighter. It's like, ooh, she's cute. Ooh, is she single? Ooh, let me go up and see if she's interested. Oh, now I have her number. Now we're gonna go walking in the park. You're able to actually start from a way less intimidating place than, oh my God, I have my filters to the 9 on Hinge, and here's this 6'2", blue-eyed, beautiful coiffed hair man who has the perfect style, educated. Is this my husband? When you see a cute purse out in the street, you're not thinking, is that my husband? Welcome back to Listen Before Love. We are back again, baby.
So happy to be here.
Yay!
As always.
We broke our hiatus. We are so excited to be back on the beautiful couches, talking about all things love. And today's topic is inspired by a lovely lady. She calls herself the Carrie Bradshaw of San Francisco. Her name's Danielle Walter. She made a video a couple of days ago about her experiences dating and how she decided to delete her dating apps.
I deleted my Hinge. I'm just kind of tired of online dating. Now, it's not to say that like I'd never go back. I just need a break. And I don't want to say anything bad about people who use online dating because hello, but I have found that it is possible and easier / better when you meet someone in person, because I feel like the pace of online dating, it's just too fast for me right now. Like the availability of options versus the feeling you get when you first meet someone in real life. I don't know if this is making sense.
And we're going to go into it a little bit more later, but I just wanted to wrap up the theme of today's episode in this little bow of dating app fatigue. Let's talk about it. Why is this happening? Why are so many people having this love-hate, but mostly hate relationship with dating apps? Why do people go on them and then feel like, oh, I gotta rage delete this app on a loop? Like, what's going on here? Why are people so tired and fatigued? Inspired by the lovely Danielle. So thank you for making that reel the other day and really sparking this thought. So with all this said, where should we begin? Do you have any like rapid fire thoughts you want to lead with the gate from, or should I give context?
Well, I would love to know more context on exactly what you got from this reel and why it has stuck with you, because I know you're so immersed into the culture of relationships and dating. It's your passion, it's your purpose. What in particular made this one stand out to you?
Okay, yes. So let's give you a little bit of context on Danielle herself. So she shares so authentically, so honestly and vulnerably about her dating experiences.
I am walking up to my second first date of 2025. We matched on Hinge, the conversation died, and then we ran into each other at the gym. So now we're getting coffee right before I go to the gym again. I'll tell you how it goes. Okay, I just got back. That was good. It's so hard because I don't really know him yet, but I think the point of a first date is to see if you want to go out on a second date. I'd go out with him again.
She is dating intentionally. She is looking for her husband. She is celibate dating, actually. And I would say she takes a lot of the advice and perspectives that we share on this show. So I feel very drawn to her because I feel like she's a great role model for young women. And I feel like she's a good example of somebody who is out here saying, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for, and I'm not going to settle for less than that. And I'm not going to demean myself, lower my standards, or do things I don't want to do just to get the ring or get to the finish line. So that's some context on Danielle. She started her very first dating vlog, if you want to hear it or see it. Highly recommend her Instagram or TikTok. It is phenomenal. I want to say like last year, I started seeing her videos and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm hooked. It truly does feel like a modern version of Sex in the City, but from a woman who's not having sex intentionally, which we love over here. So that's some context on Danielle herself. So she's been going through a life transition. She was in New York and recently moved to San Francisco.
It is the night before my move to San Francisco. I'm feeling so many different things. I have to start over. I think this is the night before the start of a very huge chapter of my life that I will remember and look back on when I have kids and grandchildren. I'll remember when I was single and 32. And I went for it.
And just to put a little quick plug about San Francisco dating, they say the odds are good, but the goods are odd. And that is one of my favorite city tropes in dating history. Every time I hear that, I laugh, and I just think it's so true. As someone who used to work in tech, it is true.
So what you mean by that is that if you're a woman, there is a plethora of men out there.
Yes, there are.
But a lot of the men that are out there are quite odd. So you're talking like awkward tech bros everywhere.
To the max.
Okay.
Yes. The backpacks galore, the awkward like tech neck hunch, just like not knowing social cues. I can say all this because I worked in tech, and I say this with love, but it is definitely a unique city to date in, but the odds are good and you could strike gold out there. So a lot of people, I would say, just looking at the cultural trends in general, I have noticed many people having a migration from the New York dating scene to San Francisco, hoping that as high-powered women who are looking for the rest of their lives, looking for their partner, their love, somebody who they feel so passionately about, they're thinking they're going to have better luck in San Francisco.
It's the second gold rush, it sounds.
Exactly. Well, that's the fingers crossed hope. I don't think Danielle has ever mentioned that, but I'm just sharing from a cultural perspective. I have noticed a lot of women are doing this like exodus from the New York dating scene out into SF. And so let's see how it pans out. But that is basically Danielle's story. So she moved to SF, just felt very called to get on a plane, pack up everything, make that happen. You know what? I don't know if she was in New York or LA. Danielle, I'm sorry if I got the details wrong.
New York. I think it was New York. I remember seeing the previous one you showed me. So she went cross country.
She went cross country.
For that gold rush.
If you did not, then please forgive us. But we love the story regardless. So here she is in SF. She starts going on dates. And most of them are from dating apps. Some of them are like people that she met out and about. But she recently made this video where she said that she was too overwhelmed to continue on the dating apps and that it felt like a, quote, full-time job to be on the dating apps. And as somebody who just moved to SF, has a new apartment, she's like wallpapered every wall of this apartment with all of these beautiful backgrounds. She goes to church regularly. She has a full social life, trying to make friends, trying to find community. Doing dating apps on top of everything that she has going on as someone who just moved to SF is just way too much for her. And in this reel specifically, she just said this one small line. And when I heard it, it just kept replaying in my head. And I was like, this is what's going on. Like, this is the fatigue. She said, there's something about the speed of dating apps that is too quick. She can't commit to it right now. And she didn't go on to explain. It was more of like, if you know kind of thing. But what immediately hit me in that moment, it like brought me back, like teleported me back to a time where I was using the dating apps. And I remembered that there was this, I don't want to use the word desperation, but this like fervor from people to be like, okay, we match on dating app. Now we go on the first date. Okay, the date went decent to better than decent. Now the guy's going to go on a second date. He's going to ask you on a third date. Now he's going to ask you to be his girlfriend. And then you end up almost in this swirl of like time, like markers in a road where it's like, here's milestone 1, 2, 3, 4, girlfriend. And before you know it, you're almost like in a relationship with somebody that you aren't really even that interested in. And when she mentioned just very offhandedly, oh, there's something about the intensity and speed that the dating apps require that I'm not willing to do, and I'd rather just meet someone in person and see what happens, I was brought back to to that moment of how many times I would say, okay, I'm going to date again, have a whole lineup of dates, and then experience this very rushed timeline with all of these guys. It ended up making me feel so bad because you're just rejecting these people who are perfectly nice and fine, or worse yet, ending up in a relationship with someone you're not even passionate about. So that's the context of Danielle, the real, the dating fatigue. So what are your thoughts, baby?
Again, before I share my thoughts, I think you told me a little bit earlier a personal story. I would love for you to go into that right now. It feels very important to stack up the amount of context in this because we need to paint a very clear picture of exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think you've experienced this more than I have, to say the least. And so
Yeah.
I'd love to share that personal story if you're open to it.
Okay, sure. Oh man. Okay. So it particularly brought to mind a couple of things that happened back when I was dating. Some of them were like harmless. Some of them were this milestone down the road type of a thing where because you'd go on a date and it would go like I said, decently or above, you would agree to a second date because why not? And you tell yourself, well, I'm still getting to know him. Who knows? It can develop. Yay, let's be positive. And then like the third date rolls around and you're like not super into this guy, but he's like trying to get you to commit to a relationship. And you don't know if you're into him or not, but that means that you're not. Okay. That's a whole other
So
conversation.
you're saying if it's a question,
If
it's
you're
an answer.
thinking, okay, I'll just bring you into my inner dialogue. And I honestly do think that this happened to Danielle as well. Girl, I don't know if you're aware of this yet, but DM me about it. I could just tell in her voice and how she was communicating in this reel that the guy, his name is like Philly Man, that she was talking about, she's just not that into him. And that's okay. But I found myself in that same situation a couple of times, totally harmless, where, you know, it'd be first date, second date, third date, everything is going well logically, but there's just an emotional component missing. Like you don't even notice if they don't text you in a week. You don't have like an excitement about who they are and the desire to get to know them because there's anxious attachment, which is I can't breathe if you're not texting me. And then there's I'm curious about this person. I really like this person. I have a crush on this person. And like, what are they doing? I'm going to like, just think of them randomly and see a book and take a picture and send it to them. And it's a completely different energy when you actually like the person. But we're in such a logical dating zone right now that I think a lot of women are falling into this trap of the milestones and then ending up in relationships with guys they're not interested in. Or they're on the merry-go-round of having to reject guys, which doesn't feel good either. So that's the first part of what I related to. But I woke up this morning and her words, for some reason, this small line in her reel really stood out to me. Her words came to me in a different way. And I was reminded of actually my one unhealthy relationship, which, you know me, I'm very particular about my words. This one was abusive towards me. And the beginnings of that relationship were exactly what Danielle captured when she was like, there's an intensity to online dating and a rushed timeline that can put you in a dangerous position if you have any level of fear of not finding your person, of running out of time, of, oh, can I have kids? I have to get married by 30, you know, these stories. If you have any level of scarcity or a belief that the person that you're looking for is not out there, and so you have to make it work with somebody, if any of this lives in your system, you can be very susceptible to an unhealthy and or abusive person coming in and toying with and exploiting the scarcity in your mindset. So let me give you the story because this is what I woke up feeling into and thinking about. So I had met this guy on Hinge and we made some voice notes back and forth. Y'all know I love a voice note. It gives you so much. I mean, go back to our episode about how to stand out on dating apps. We talk all about voice notes, but we were going back and forth. I felt like there was good chemistry, a vibe, like, you know, almost like the Buzz Lightyear meme where it's like a sign of intelligent life. Like it's just somebody who like excited me and who I feel was different, you know, had an edge. And so I was excited going back and forth. And he asked for my number. We started texting. He was on like a work trip when we were texting. So there was like a built up anticipation to our first date. He had planned this concert date, which I thought was pretty cool. And sent like an Uber. He was in the Uber. It picked me up. And pretty immediately, even though we had gone back and forth on voice note and text for like a week and a half, he was very handsy with me, like inappropriately. And I just share these details because in my gut, I knew I was not comfortable with that. But something kicked in. I don't know quite how to explain it. And I've mentioned this on the show many times before that I felt like a rag doll in my experiences many times throughout my life. And I have like a freeze that comes over me. And so I think even though he was being handsy, it wasn't too much. Like it was just enough. It was like towing a line of like, I don't even know you, but like, okay, I guess this is fine. And I only mention this because I had this feeling from the very beginning of when I met him in person that there was something rushed about the relationship and about his energy. Like he was trying to quicken the timeline of intimacy between us. And I felt it, but I couldn't wrap my logical mind around it. Now I know looking back that this was a warning sign, as we talk about all the time, that's like there's no need for a healthy person to move that quickly and assert themselves in a weird way that makes you feel almost like a rush of hormones artificially before you're ready and letting them unfold naturally, which can really mess up your decision making. So it starts like that. Our second date comes and we go to dinner. And almost like the first thing out of his mouth was like, I want you to be my girlfriend. And this is the second date, right? After the first date was pretty good, I would say. But he hits me with this. And I was just so shocked because I had gone back on the dating apps and he was like the first guy that I went on a date with. Like it literally felt like my heart was open enough to go back out there. I went on this date and now I'm on a second date and this guy is like trying to lock it down. And I was just bewildered. I in one hand, I was like, well, this is what I wanted, right? Because like I want somebody who's like really wants me and is choosing me with a fervor and a passion, but also like, this is super fast. I don't even really know this guy. So he says this, and then I just respond saying, hey, I just started dating again. Like literally a week ago when we started talking, I started getting into the mindset of going on dates again. So I wasn't really planning to commit to somebody this quickly. I would like to get to know you more. And his response was like, really, it like just blew me back. It had a lot of energy. It had a lot of like subtle anger in it where he was just like, well, if you don't think I'm the one for you, then we should just call it here. Like, we just shouldn't go on any more dates. Like, this should just be it. And something triggered in me. I'm telling you, it's about the scarcity. Something flared up where I was like, no, like, it's okay. Like, no, we can figure it out. And something flipped in my head where I was like, oh, this is the last man on earth. And I don't know if it's a woman experience or if you can relate to anything that I'm saying, but his reaction to me trying to say this is going too fast made me second guess my own knowing and my own discernment. So I ended up trying to be like, okay, listen, this feels like it's moving really fast. Like, I don't know what the right move is, but I'd like to continue getting to know you. And he was like, well, if you want to continue getting to know me, you need to just delete the apps. And I don't want you talking to any other men. And again, this should have been a flag, but our personalities gelled. He wanted the same things I wanted. He was serious. Like, I remember on that date, I mean, this is such a red flag central. I was like, Liz, we're not going to have sex for a long time. I celibate dated for a while. And I'm going to get to know you. And if you're thinking that us being a couple is going to fast track intimacy, that's not going to happen. And I made it very clear. I was like, I really don't want to get sexual with a man before I know him for a long time, or even better, if we're engaged and I know that we're going to be married. And he was like, well, I'd propose to you tomorrow. I was like, I'm telling you, I'd never been more bewildered by somebody's, but there was something about it. Now, this is my wound that I needed to work through, that was like so resolute. Like when you hear a man be like, oh no, you're it. Like it's you and I'm not going anywhere and you're what I want. And I guess you don't think you want me. And then you're like, oh, it feels good to be chosen when you have a wound around being chosen. So it just hit me in the right way, like the perfect spot of the game of operation. It just hit the perfect place that made me like continue to not only go along with it, but just be swept up in it. And that relationship did not last for very long, thankfully. I think all in all, it was like 4 or 5 months, but he got his way. I deleted the apps. I stopped talking to other men. We were boyfriend, girlfriend. The sex did not happen, I will say. So I did stay firm on that. But it ended up being my most unhealthy and abusive relationship with someone who had anger issues. I feel because I abandoned my intuition and my inner voice that went off from the second I got into the Uber the first time we met. So when Danielle said, you know, there's something about online dating that shortens the timeline, makes it a very intense experience where things move very fast. That is what it awakened in me, was like this experience I had with this one guy. And I feel like that experience is what women especially have become afraid of. And that's why there's this weird relationship with the apps. And it's not just the experience of falling into the arms of somebody who wants to rush intimacy and bypass all of the unfolding and the getting to know you. It's also having the rejection merry-go-round of nice guys who just aren't it, because we're not saying that soon enough, but then we get 3 dates and they want us to be their girlfriend. So there's just something about these factors on dating apps that's causing an overwhelm in almost everybody I've talked to about them. So I'm going to take a breath because, wow, I have actually not recounted that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a very deep personal story. It felt right for me to prompt that.
Yeah.
Than you at the beginning. I don't know why, but I just did. So thank you so much for being so open and sharing that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. One thing that really came up for me as you were saying that was, if it feels rushed, it's not right.
Yes.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yes.
And again, it being rushed isn't coming down to like this perfect scenario we have in our head where, okay, we're going to kiss on the second date, and then this is going to happen on the 4th date, and then this is going to happen, go back his place on this date, and then this is going to happen this date. And then it's not that sequence that oftentimes our mind creates before we start dating. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the moment, how do you feel about this interaction?
Right.
It's a very different thing, because I've had relationships like with you where on paper, things quote unquote would have been rushed.
Right.
Like we bought a house 2 months into knowing each other, right? Like
we
that's
really did.
rushed.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel rushed.
Well, also tell the people about why it didn't feel rushed.
Oh,
how
perfect.
did we meet?
Perfect.
And what
so
happened?
we met in public, right? And not in public, but we met in the real world. in public. We met in private. No. We met in the real world. And
at a yoga studio.
I'm not going to go in the whole story.
I know. I just say there's some new
itself.
people here.
But we made sure that, I mean, at the beginning, it didn't feel like it was an immediate like, oh, this is going to be a romantic thing.
Yeah.
It took some time.
Yeah.
I knew. I mean, first thing that like I knew.
Ayo.
I knew you fit into the category that I so prefer. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I didn't immediately go into it saying this is going to be someone I'm going to pursue romantically.
Mm-hmm.
And when it became very clear, like 2 weeks later
Yeah.
that this is someone I want to pursue romantically, it was no pressure around it.
Yeah.
Let's just feel into it. Let's just have fun. Let's just see each other when we want to see each other. There's no expectation. There's no talk immediately about exclusivity. It's just, let's just hang out and see how it goes.
Right.
And it was this very natural flow of a conversation, of interaction, of a relationship that led to us feeling quite quickly like, oh, this is my person.
Yeah.
And it happened, I feel like the day after I realized, oh, this is romantic, it became very clear, oh, this is my person.
Exactly.
So that, in the grand scheme of things, on paper or in our minds before we started dating, that sounds like something rushed.
Yeah.
But we felt in the moment this flow of like, no, this is real. This isn't rushed. This is right on time.
Right.
And so the idea of a certain timeline doesn't actually exist. All it is really a feeling.
Yes.
And we know, I swear, and it's a little bit different for men than it is women, but it's still on the same, I believe, first date or first interaction, not just first date, but first interaction. You know if it's a no.
You do.
You know if it's a no.
Yep. But the maybes are what is trapping
100%.
so many women
So with us,
and men.
for me, it felt like this is a maybe. This is a we'll see. You know? So it was a healthy maybe.
Right.
There's also a lot of unhealthy maybes.
Right.
What would make an unhealthy maybe is you kind of know they're not the one, but then you have these thoughts come in of, I'm gonna be 32 soon.
Right.
Ooh, I'm gonna need this. Oh, I have this wedding. I'm going to the front. I'm gonna need someone there in a few months. I got this. I got that. It's that makes it into a maybe.
Right.
You're trying to shove a no circle into a square peg, whatever it's called, a square hole, whatever it may be. I butchered that completely, but you know exactly what I mean.
Yes,
You're
I
trying to
do.
make it into a maybe because it fits how you want to be living at that point, but it's the wrong person.
Yep.
So that is something that I had quite a bit when I was in college, when I was in Bali, a few other places in high school. I was just lonely, straight up, especially during COVID and that time. Like,
Oh.
I wanted someone to hang out with. I wanted someone to spend time with. And again, everything happened perfectly. And I'm very happy with how it went. I feel like we're still both for a handful of them that happened, a little dating 2 months here, dating 4 months here, whatever it was. It's all left amicable and respectful. But I realized that I was doing that from a place of, I just want someone there. I just want someone to fill this hole in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And those relationships are never going to die. They're going to fail.
Yeah.
Those aren't going to work. And either they're going to fail or within you're going to know the entire time it's not right.
Yeah.
And the entire time you're going to be self-sabotaging it because you know in your heart it's not meant to be. And so, yeah, I think it's so important. Just like we say with every podcast we have, it all comes down to how you feel around that person.
Yeah.
Truly. And one thing in particular I want to highlight when it comes to the actual premise of this episode is what happens in the dating apps that is so different from what a real life experience would be.
Yes.
And that is what I believe is premature intimacy. It is this pressure that we feel of, I've never met you before, but this is a first date and you could potentially be the one.
Right.
That doesn't happen anywhere else.
Right.
Because when you DM someone, when you set up a time to do the other things and you're meeting, whether it's like a super fancy date or just like for coffee one day, whenever it's happening, there's a part of you is like, can this be the one?
Right.
And it's so much so that most people are like, all right, I've looked up his entire family on Facebook. All of them seem pretty good. This one guy, a little weird. His uncle's a little weird, but he's good.
Not the
he
uncle.
went to this school, went to this high school. And I'm like, okay. So you create this story because
Yeah.
it's this premature investment that doesn't have any grounds, any foundation yet.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of dissatisfaction comes.
Yeah.
And so both people, both the men and women or women and women, man and man, or whatever relationship you're looking for, whatever it is, there is this premature research, this premature feelings that develop before they normally would in the real world. Because if I were to just see you in a coffee shop or just a random girl that looks attractive in the coffee shop, maybe a little bit different for you just because, you know, you're you, and you're the person I'm going to marry, you know, but if it's just another attractive at the coffee shop, my first thought in my mind isn't, is this my wife?
Right.
No, she's pretty cute. Let me go up and try to see if she's single, maybe get her number, maybe talk a little bit. That's a very big difference.
Yes.
Then is she my wife?
So what you're explaining here is that there's a progression.
There is a premature
yes.
beginning, emotional beginning of that relationship
Right.
that would never happen in the real world.
Well, in the real world, there's a progression that's lighter. It's like, ooh, she's cute. Ooh, is she single? Ooh, let me go up and see if she's interested. Oh, now I have her number. Now we're going to go walking in the park. You're able to actually start from a way less intimidating place than, oh my God, I have my filters to the 9 on Hinge, and here's this 6'2", blue-eyed, beautiful coiffed hair man who has the perfect style, the perfect job. I'm just describing you.
Yeah,
the
I'm
perfect
like,
resume,
damn.
founder, all the things I like, educated. Is this my husband? When you see a cute purse out in the street, you're not thinking, is that my husband?
100%. It's so unique because on the apps also, you can't really feel their energy.
Not at all.
You don't know how they are. And that's very, very important.
You overinvest on the logical tenets of the person,
Exactly.
their education, their height, their photos, what they feel like to you on their profile. And so you're investing, like you said, all this premature energy in, oh my God, like this guy would be perfect. Now there's a story. Now we're looking up his uncle and his family and his mom and looking up on Instagram. Who is he following? Does he know anyone I know? Oh my God, my friend follows him. Let me DM her and ask about him. And now we're way more invested in this rando on a dating app than we would ever be if we just saw him on the street. That is the problem.
Yeah.
It like short circuits so much of the natural progression that's fun and cheeky and mysterious. Like, let's contrast what I just said with how we met. We met in a yoga studio. I was sitting in the corner of the room writing a story on my phone about the event I host. Cam walked into the room. He's super friendly, light up the room with a smile. You know, hi, nice to meet you. And I'm like, hi, back to my writing. And then he re-engaged and was like, what you writing over there? And I was like, oh, well, I'm writing this story about that. It was natural. Like, who knew what it was going to be?
And let me tell you something that just hit me while we're saying this.
Right.
Remember last week we were talking about the law of reciprocity.
Right.
For what it's like to host communities, what it's like to do everything we do.
Right.
The same goes for this.
Yes.
So hear me out. If you are investing, whether it's half an hour, oftentimes hours, if not days,
Yes.
DMing someone, stalking their entire digital footprint, that is you giving your energy. And now there is a balance that isn't yet paid, where you will now search and shake out of that person enough energy to receive the energetic balance you've already invested into it. That's what's taking place.
Oh,
That's the unlock. I'm just thinking about this now. That makes perfect sense.
we cracked it.
Because you
That's
don't want
exactly
any,
it.
in the business world, sunk costs. You don't want to be like, damn, that guy I just like, fantasized over for the past 4 days. Yeah, he's just totally mid. And he's a little bit uglier, a little more fatter, a little not as great at talking to me.
I told all my friends.
I told all my
about him.
friends. I called
texting
my
me
grandma this
asking.
week. I told her a little bit about that. I'm going to stay with this guy. And so you're invested. That you do not want just human behavior. You do not want a sunk cost on this. So you will put up with more red flags, yellow flags, or just stuff you don't like because of that investment. Where in person, when I met you for the first time, I had nothing invested in you.
Right.
And you had nothing invested in me. And so at the beginning, we're starting even.
Right.
And from there, that's where it can really grow.
Right.
But when we have this over investment into someone, that's when we stay longer than we should. That feels right for us, then feels right for us. And that's what causes the judgment towards ourselves, the judgment towards them, the resentment towards them, the resentment towards ourselves, and then the resentment towards the dating apps as a whole for being the thing that set all this whole thing up. That is really the problem with dating.
Oof.
It's that right there. We cracked the code.
We cracked it.
We cracked the code. That's it. And so what can we do now that we understand this, what can we do practically? And again, I'm just workshopping this right now live with you.
Right.
This is what just feels right for me. It's what's coming through me
We
at this
didn't
moment.
click this reciprocity thing into place until
Until
Cam
right now.
just riffed on that.
If I knew that I am giving energy by meeting someone online, what I would do is make sure that I spend the least amount of any energy possible online.
Yes.
Now, I understand there's a little bit of recon you want to do to make sure they're not a total creeper. You make sure they're not on one of those don't date him pages on Facebook in your city. You want to do a little bit. I understand that. But there is a law of diminishing returns that takes place where you don't need to look up his best friends from middle school's current family life. Or their, the school, what he graduated with and what job he's been at now. There's a lot that's too much going into these things that makes us feel like we have a lot riding on this.
Yes.
That we need to minimize completely. And when it comes to apps as a whole, of course, again, these apps are, as we know with other social media companies, they are engineered to keep us on that platform as much as possible. There are features in place to promote this sense of urgency, the sense of I need to check in every day, sometimes multiple hours a day, or checking every few hours, whatever it may be. These apps are literally rewiring the way our brains work around romantic relationships, around technology as a whole. They're just trying to make money. No, I understand that. That's completely okay. But with that knowledge, with the information, we can take that as power and really utilize this dating app not as a distraction tool, not as a thing that we do when we're in the bathroom or waiting at the grocery store, whatever it is. It is something that we use like a tool, like a freaking calculator, where we only use it for a very direct purpose, and we have very strict boundaries around how it's being used. And we do not text someone for 2 weeks for multiple hours a day. We don't keep on investing in these things because then there's a huge sunk cost. And we know people personally in our lives that have texted people for days, weeks, months, even years before meeting them in person. So now there is years worth of investment that they will put up with a lot of stuff because they already feel so energetically invested. So on these apps that we know the apps themselves are probably not what's best for us, and we know that others may not be showing the entirety, the whole holistic image of themselves, because we aren't doing that either. We're showing our best 4 photos we've ever taken.
Right.
There is so much going on that we need to remind ourselves that we're not getting an accurate depiction of this person.
Right.
And emphasizing time in person over anything else is the most important thing.
And let's go into that for a second, because going back to one of the first factors of dating app fatigue, where I talked about you go on a first date, it's decent or above on the scale. Let's say it's a 5 out of 10 or above. And then the guy's like, oh, you want to go out again? You're like, yeah, okay, sure. It's not like a hell yeah. It's more of like a, okay, sure. It feels like that. If we were to say no to that guy who is perfectly kind, maybe he has the things we want logically on the checklist, but it's not a heck yeah. If we were to say no more, this fatigue would be reduced drastically of what it is today. And I'm speaking to a past version of myself here because, oh my gosh, the stories I could tell you. There was this one particular time when I was like, you know what? It's time to date, and I am going to put myself out there. I have all the confidence, all the empowerment. And I went on the dating apps and I could line up like 10 dates, like in a flash of a finger. And I know men who are listening to this are like, must be nice, because I know for men, getting dates on dating apps is actually much harder than women. But I was able to line up like a whole suite of guys that I was interested in. And I remember this one specific date. Oh my gosh. This guy was like an engineer at Google. So sweet. Such a great personality. He was from the Midwest and had a great accent. And we went back and forth on voice note. And he scheduled this amazing first date for us. We went to this restaurant downtown. It was like a Michelin star, like you get all these courses. He rolled out the red carpet for me, and I was just so, so grateful. But the second I saw this guy, he was significantly heavier than his dating app photos. And I was not attracted to him. And it wasn't like a weight thing. It was more just the energy. We didn't have that chemistry. And he tried to like touch me a couple times, like just on the shoulder, like totally appropriate. And I like felt my body shift to not receive his touch. And I knew like I was not into this guy, but because he had rolled out such a red carpet for me, by the end of the date, when he was like, do you want to go out on a second date? I said yes, because I felt like guilty. And then our second date, oh my God, this is wild. He had planned this like retro boat date for us. And he had booked this like amazing retro boat on the lake. And I remember I went to my friends Brian and Annie's apartment before this date. I was stressed, so stressed. I was pacing around their apartment like, I don't want to go, guys. Like, I don't want to go on the date. He's going to try to kiss me. Like, I don't want to go. Like, I was so stressed out. And I remember Annie was just like, why are you going on a date with a guy you clearly don't like? And there was a moment where it's almost like record scratch. You're like, why am I doing this? It was out of guilt, right? Because there was so much investment that he put in. He had treated me so well. And the scarcity of like, will I find another guy who treats me this well and who I actually find attractive? All that started kicking in. Then that made me say, yes, the second date. I ended up going on the second date, but my energy was so turned off. So turned off. It was night and day. I pulled back on texting. I stopped voice noting him as much. Like he even said like, hey, I've noticed that you've not been messaging enough, like, or not enough, but not been messaging as much as you did. Like, is everything okay? Did I do something to offend you before the second date? And I was like, oh no, like it's totally fine. I've just had a busy week. And, and I know now I just didn't like the guy. So I could go a full week without talking to him. And I didn't even want to go on this date. We go on the date. It was a great time because he's a lovely person and our personalities got along. But we went for like the 2-3 hours. He tried to kiss me. I said I wasn't comfortable. And then we both were like, this just isn't it, right? And I'm like, yeah. I felt so relieved. I was like, it was almost like I would turn off my energy so much with the men I wasn't interested in that they would reject me. So that I didn't have to be the one to say it because I didn't want to like hurt their feelings or something. I'm being so specific here because I know that there's at least one woman listening to this who does exactly what I used to do. Why am I sharing this story though? Because on the first date, when I locked eyes with this fellow and knew I was not into him, I should have just politely said, I'm not feeling any romantic energy between us, but I think you're such a lovely person and I wish you all the best and I'll keep you in mind for my single friends. It really is that easy. And if we as women, I'm talking specifically to women, but it also applies to men. I'd love your perspective here too, baby. If women rose up from the shackles of scarcity and were to tell men on the first date that they're not feeling it, we would not have this level of dating app fatigue. We would not. If women would trust their intuition and their discernment that's whispering this ain't it, or this is a maybe, or maybe, oh, it was fine. If you're saying any of that about somebody you're dating, cut the cameras.
If there's any obligation energy, just know it's not the one.
No.
And this is very important for men and women to both hear. You don't owe them anything.
Right.
And just because the dinner bill is a certain amount of money, or just because they drove all this way, or just because you guys have been texting for this long, none of that matters. If you feel within your heart that this isn't the person, trust that.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. If we all did that, dating would be a fantastic thing. But because no one chooses to do that, that's why it sucks right now.
Right.
And so that's really all it comes down to. It's what we've always said. And every story that we have, I think, highlights this to be the case.
Yeah.
And again, everything that's happened in the past is perfect to happen for a reason. We're meant to learn these lessons. They were meant to have the experience with us. We never know the ripple effects that our past dating lives have had in us actually for the better.
Yeah.
And what it's taught us. But it's very important to also understand, like, am I dating this person because they're touching my heart or because they're touching my wounds?
Ooh.
That's really what it comes down to. And the amount of people I see out there, including myself in the past, that kept things going because of their own wounds, it saddens me. It's a cause of all abuse. It really is. We would not be drawn to someone, if we're truly being honest with our heart, that would ever do something to wrong us in any abusive fashion.
Or rush us.
Right. Imagine, okay, if you go on a first date with someone and you're like, this is a 5 out of 10. This is a 6 out of 10.
Right.
Do you really think that your love story is the first date? He was mid. He was all right.
My husband was mid.
You hear with old people all the time. It's like, especially old women. It's like, the first time I saw him, I wasn't attracted to him at all. But then Richard, really turned me around. He bought me flowers. Then he did this. What they leave out of the context was that there were 32 people in that small town.
Yes.
And they had like 4 choices.
Literally.
And the other two of the other 4 people, I guess, 2 of the total 4 people were missing teeth. Other 3 was like going to jail and stuff. One's already married. Like, the options back then, these stories we've been told to sacrifice and to not get what we want, is an outdated way of living.
We should not be taking dating advice from boomers. Period.
Maybe advice as a whole.
This is like generation.
I got a few boomers watching this. I know who watches this. I love y'all. Some of y'all, are family.
Okay, we love you. There's no shade here, but like
this is a new world.
The Meet Cute NYC page on Instagram, which interviews like old people in their story, that, oh my God, 75% of them are exactly what Cam just said. The woman's like, I wasn't really into him, but I came around to it. Like he said, what they're not including in the picture there is the fact that there were like 10 options in this small town in Michigan. It's like, this is what they're not saying. We have a different destiny.
We can live wherever we want right now. We can order any type of food to our front door within half an hour. We can work for pretty much anyone, anywhere from the comfort of our own home. It's the same for relationships.
Right.
We have the access to all 8 billion people.
Right.
Why would we ever settle?
Right.
Oh man, this is coming up for me, so I'm going to say it. The level of which we settle for things in our life, when it comes to what we do for a living, the passion and purpose we have behind our job, when it comes to the other relationships we tolerate, friends that are just, okay, they're kind of toxic, they're a little abusive, they're not the best. Keep many same as family members. We tolerate the place we live, all these other things. That tolerate ability, that tolerate muscle, is also applying to romantic relationships. Mm-hmm. So I guarantee, if you find someone that is in full alignment in their job or what they do for a living, full alignment living where they want to live, have fantastic relationships, enjoyable relationships with everyone they know, they'll have no problem attracting the dream person.
Yeah. Because
they choose to not settle.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the fatigue comes from, on these dating apps, comes from tolerating people that we know aren't the one for us.
Exactly. And like you said earlier, investing so much energy, time, care, brain power, heart power into people. And then once it's like a couple months down the road, it's so hard for most people to justify the sunk cost. So they just keep going. And we could go even more into this because let me just tell you, men, and we talked about this, it's a little controversial.
Let's talk about it.
The commitment timeline for a man is something that blows most women's minds when I talk about this in my community with my clients. Men think about commitment very, very differently than women. This is why you see a relationship where a man and a woman are together for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and then the man walks with no proposal, no wedding. And then you see this woman who's like, I gave you everything and you walked away and you wasted my time and all this. Well, in reality, first of all, it takes two to tango. I send all empathy.
Ooh.
It takes two. You were an active participant in this relationship, but also a relationship cannot go on that long without action from a man unless you're not having the conversations about it, unless you're not keeping your word on what you desire. If you desire to be engaged, to be married, that needs to come up in conversation and actually be followed through on. This is where you see so many, I can't even tell you the amount of women who will take milestones on the relationship to mean that they're building towards something. Like, oh, well, I know that we've been together 10 years and he hasn't proposed yet, but I've met his whole family.
We have a mortgage together. We have a dog together.
We have a dog.
We've started life. This means that we're moving towards marriage.
Right.
That's not how men see it. And I wish I can even fully understand what goes to the average man's mind, but it's hard for me to even fathom. But it's this level of unconscious living.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all right, I'm this age. All right, I'm gonna get this car I want. All right, now I'm gonna work and I'm gonna get this house. Yeah, I'm 27. It's time for me to buy a house. All right, yeah, sure. And then they think of it like an Excel spreadsheet. Like, well, it'd be easier if she moves in with me because she got an income, and then I'll make me have to pay half of the rent or half the mortgage. That's easier. And then we split groceries. And then I like her. I love her. She's we hang out a lot. In their mind, it's very much matter of fact, and it's very much dollars and cents. Not saying I'm all doing it for money by any means, but it's all up here in the mind. It's not in here in the heart.
And that's why he's not proposing.
And that's why it's not proposing. Because number one, he's probably numb to a lot of things in life, but in particular, numb within the heart. And let me tell you, woman, I feel like I'm about to mansplain the way you said it. Let me tell you, woman. Let me tell you, woman.
No, but he can mansplain.
If a man is not having his heart open to have the conversations with you that are necessary for your own reassurance in relationship, he's not ready. Not saying you're not the one for him, but the version of himself that he is right now is not the one for you. And the more you stay with him, the more it is condoning and reaffirming that behavior of unwilling to share and have the conversations of how he sees his future and how he's feeling at this moment. So if a man feels like a brick wall when it comes to the most important stuff, treat it as if a brick wall is there and begin to pull back. And in the most loving, respectful way, potentially ask. Now, in a perfect world, a healthy man would not be waiting for his woman to ask. A healthy man, including what I've done, is proactively share my intentions.
And leading the conversation.
This woman has known very early on in a relationship that she's the one for me.
Oh, very early.
100%.
Literally, when we were friends for a month, so from we met February 19th of last year, it became romantic, if you want to call it that, on March 12th. That's when we had this big long weekend where we went to a bunch of little things together as friends. And we were so touchy and everyone thought we were a couple. And we were kind of went with it because we thought it was kind of funny.
How long have we been together? I'm 2 weeks.
Yeah, he was
but I'm are we together?
I was I don't know.
But it was just friends, right?
It was
we're
chaotic.
holding hands and hugging.
Yeah, we were holding hands and
we couldn't stay away.
We were so touchy, and everyone's oh, you guys are so cute together, and we're just yeah, it was so chaotic and funny, and so that was the weekend that it became romantic because it was just what is this? Who knows? But that was what made it fun. The unfolding, the falling in love, the falling. We fell for a month. We didn't just walk into the restaurant on the first date and say, hello, checklist. Are
And be
you
honest
my
with
husband?
exactly. And be honest with yourself. If we can take on the hypothetical experiment of being a bird's eye view,
Right.
an observer of your relationship.
Right.
If y'all were at a restaurant or at a coffee shop or just doing your thing on a date, and someone were to be watching, well, it's an old set of grandparents, just sitting back in the chair observing whatever's going on, what would they say about you two and your energy and your connection? Not having any investment. They don't know the whole Tinder DMing experience that took place. They don't know all these other things. They don't know how many dates you've been on. They just see what's in front of them. What would they say about your energy? Would they say, oh, those people are in love? Oh, look at them. Look, oh my gosh, look at them. Would they be like that? Or would they be like, you think they're on a date? Or like, they look like really nervous, like a first date or something. They didn't even know. Are they like dating? Is it like a brother sister? Is it like a co-working? Is it like a business meeting? Like,
Right.
what energy, if you were to be honest with yourself, what energy exchange is happening when y'all are together? That will say it all, because when we went to those
events,
parties, those
people
events,
said it to us.
people were like, yo, y'all are like,
they're like
the perfect
Elle,
match.
why didn't you tell me you were dating someone? And I
We're
was
like,
like,
we're not.
We're not. And it was like, people tell you
Yeah.
before you see it.
Again, what is the story? What is the story that you're going to tell your grandkids? Is it going to say, oh, yeah, the first date, it was all right. And the second day, I'm like, it was mid. I felt some obligation. I didn't really want to go, but then I did. And, he paid a lot of dinner, and then we did this. And so it was okay. And then the third date, and, he makes good money, and they're good parents. Is that the story? Is that really the story? Come on. We are really here. The whole Listen Before Love really feels like helping people understand that they can disregard any of the beliefs or disbeliefs that do not serve them around dating, that they need to settle, and allow you to restore your faith that you can have your own Cinderella story.
Yeah.
I remember before meeting Elle, literally days before, hours before, I'll share the story at a different time, but the moment I talked about this a little bit beforehand, but the moment I began to set a higher standard for the type of woman I wanted to be around, that I would be romantically interested in, the higher and higher the standard went, the better options I got. So it reached one point, I'm like, I'm only going to be dating for marriage going forward. I'm not messing around anymore. I'm not doing one more one-night stands, not doing any of that. The criteria, the quality of the women, just with that internal mindset shift and releasing any emotions around that, whatever it was, the moment I said that was the moment I only attracted women that were worthy of a long-term relationship. And then even then, that's like people with 80% of what I want. And then in my head, I'm like, no, I'm going to be more specific. This is what I want them to be like. This is how I want to feel around them. I want this level of energy. I want this level of love. I want to feel nurtured. I want to feel cared. I want to feel supported. I want to feel like it's someone who is independent, but also loves when I take the lead. Like I listed it all out. And then I got women that were 90, 95% of that. But it was until I said, nah, I'm getting the perfect person for me. The moment I said, I'm not settling for good enough. I'm not even settling for great. I am only going to attract what I feel as if is my perfect person. This doesn't mean they're perfect people in general, but they're perfect for me. And it was maybe 48 hours later I met you.
Yeah.
Like, it is uncanny, the timing.
Because just to kind of bring you into this a little bit, Cam had randomly decided to run the Austin Marathon. And like with no training. He like just
I'm a sicko.
He just ran the half, and then you were like completely spent in your body, and you had like an emotional moment with yourself, right? Where you looked in the mirror and you were just like, God, I'm ready for my person. Didn't you say that?
Yeah,
you
so
prayed.
a week beforehand,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going down the wrong path. I need to get my shit together. That's when I decided to sign up for the marathon.
Wow.
And I'm like, let me just put something in my life that is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it anyways. And I'm going to prove to myself that I can do much more than I ever could imagine. And so I signed up for it a week ago. So I had a very similar moment where I was just like, okay, I'm ready to live life to the fullest. I'm ready to aspire and become everything I know I'm capable of becoming. And that's what made me have like a week of just getting my shit together.
Right.
Then the marathon happened that following, I think it was a Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, whatever it was. It was a Sunday. And that night, I remember it was just in my new Austin apartment, having no furniture other than a mattress on the floor. I had ordered some pizza that night. I think I smoked like some weed or something like that. I had edible, whatever it was. Just relaxing. That I can literally barely move. I was trying to take a bath, but that bathtub was a cheap apartment, super small. So I was up like here.
He's like 6'2", with his knees on his chin.
But like, see, I'm recovering. I got some Epsom salts and stuff. So I remember that was happening, and then I just I think watched Batman, my favorite movie, when I was not in the best mood. And I remember I paused that, and then I just started sobbing, and it was like, I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready for my person. And again, the person I was even a week prior, I'm not saying I didn't have all my shit together. I was still a high value man, but there's a whole level that I'm at now. I was committing to that new level. But that Sunday night after running the marathon is another sobbing session of just like, let me just get on my knees and pray for my person. Literally the next day, I don't know what it was in the map of consciousness. I think that's when I crossed into the spiritual paradigm, went from the high 400s to low 500s. My mood, my energy, everything just felt so much lighter. I felt like I was walking in a cloud in comparison to where I've been my whole life. That was the day I walked into the yoga studio and met you.
Yep. We met the day after that, the day after the marathon.
The day after that. So it was the day before, felt like, 16 hours before, when I said to myself that I'm ready for my person and for it to truly be my person. Mm-hmm. Not just ready to date high caliber women. I'm ready for my person.
Yeah.
The one of one. And I'm ready fully to commit to becoming the man that deserves that woman. The most important part. And that's when it happened. And this goes into a complete different conversation of which all of this external world is simply a reflection of our internal state. It is a mirror for what's going on within here. And it takes us having a lot of belief in ourselves and ridding ourselves of a lot of what we've been taught from past generations, from TV shows, from all these other things, to get us to the point where we have enough true confidence and reassurance within ourselves that we deserve exactly what we want for this life. And so at that time, I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but I see it very clearly that was what's happening. And the moment I became immensely clear that that's what's going to be the case going forward, that I will only attract my person, that I will be on the endless pursuit of becoming the man capable of that person and everything else I know that I'm meant to experience this lifetime, meant to accomplish, meant to be. That was when it was handed to me on a silver platter. As I kind of crip walked my way into the yoga studio because my leg was still asleep and felt broken almost after the half marathon, no training, and then walked in to you.
Oh.
Yeah. And so
I'm so happy you shared that.
Yeah. It feels important. And again, back to the topic of Tinder, topic of the dating apps. These dating apps are neither good nor bad.
Right.
They're just filled with misaligned people right now. Because if you look around society, it's a whole bunch of misaligned people. Therefore, if you get them all together, when they're all very indirect communicators, most of them aren't that healthy of humans in every form of the word. Of course, you're going to get on there and not have the best experience. But the more we look out for ourselves as if we would like to care for our daughter or a son, whatever it may be, and we set a higher bar for ourselves and what we want to attract from the world, that is when the best of the best will come out of these dating apps. That's how it happens. So if you feel fatigued, that's completely okay. And not all of us are meant to be on those apps. But you'll know if you were to feel into yourself, is this something that I want in my life right now? And if it is a yes, I do want to be dating apps, and how do I want that to look? How can I use it as a tool that serves me as opposed to siphons my energy and makes the giving and receiving balance of a relationship feel so off that everything's a sunk cost and I don't actually like these people, but I keep it going, all the other things we talked about. It all comes down to just knowing thyself and respecting yourself, loving yourself enough to set a new standard for how we want to date going forward, how we want to be going forward.
And if we remember that the dating apps are a tool of one of many tools in our toolbox, not the entire box, it's just one small tool. And we're using the dating apps as a sign, a symbol, a bold statement that our heart is open and that we are ready for love. That's a great way to use the apps. If we're using the apps from a place of, oh God, I got to download Hinge again because I'm running out of time. And then when's it going to happen? I'm not going to find my person. Well, guess what? We're just going to keep on getting people who are going to reinforce that belief.
You're not going to find your person. You just said it, right? You just said it. So
you're going to find a lot of people that make you wish you had your person to an even more desperate degree. And it's going to delay the timeline. So we have to be honest with ourselves about how we're using these things. And to wrap up this episode by bringing it back to Danielle, shout out to our girl. She said, she looked within herself and said, I can't do the apps right now. I don't want to use the apps the way that I have been using them. I think maybe if Danielle were to listen to this and hear about the law of reciprocity and the amount of energy she's putting in and do some adjustments on what that looks like. And I'm opening this as like an open channel to anyone who feels fatigue. Let's use this feeling of fatigue as a message to ourselves to recalibrate the amount of investment we're giving to the apps. Because if we balance out the investment, there is no fatigue. Like then if we balance out the investment, we go on dates and when we're not feeling it, we speak it honestly and then no sunk cost, you will have a completely different reality with these apps. So let's just take this as a sign. This episode, this conversation, is it time to recalibrate your relationship? Is it time to switch things up? Is it time to balance the scales of investment that you're putting into these apps or dating in general? And lastly, as Danielle is doing, which I think is fantastic, she's living her full life without the apps. What if the world was your dating app? That's what the world used to be. Before dating apps, the world was how we found people. So if we were to approach the world and everything it had to offer, going to communities, to events around the city, hanging out with friends, asking friends if they know anyone who'd be a good fit for you, being more visible, doing things that light you up, going to a pottery class if that sounds fun, or writing online if that sounds fun, doing whatever you need to do to feel like you have a full cup, and then seeing how the entire world opens up to you. How would that version of you experience the apps? I don't think you'd feel fatigue. When I got to that point, when my life was so full and I had a very strong awareness of everything we've said in this episode, the investment, the not putting too much in on dates, not feeling guilty to say no, cutting when I knew it just wasn't it. When I started dating from that place, I was walking on a cloud, having so much fun. And every man I dated right before Cam, they were the 90 to 95% of what I wanted. Like, oh my gosh, almost the entire checklist was checked. It was just the energy thing that was just a little bit missing. And then Cam came in. And that's what you'll see. And he's my 100. He's my 110%. Yeah, flex that muscle, baby. But that's what you'll find is that maybe this episode is your sign if you are single or even in a relationship, maybe we made you reconsider something.
Hey,
yo.
Hey, wouldn't be the first time.
Would it be the first? Hey, we've had breakups from the show before.
Hey, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank
Close
you.
one door opening another.
We're opening so many doors here. And so let this just be your sign. We are so grateful for everybody who joined us for this episode today. It was a really, really great one. Thank you to Danielle for providing such an honest look into modern dating and sharing so much of what she's going through with an open heart and open mind. I think it takes so much courage to put herself out there the way she does, and she inspired this episode. So thank you to Danielle. Thank you to everybody who watches this show. It would mean the world to us if you rated it, gave us a little 5-star if you enjoy it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us, whatever makes you feel good. That any comment or anything you make, just know I reply to all of those, and it really, really makes our day to see the comments. One comment yesterday, I'll give a shout out, was somebody said, I love when Cam goes off, TBH. And I just gotta say, shout out to that person, because I love when Cam goes off too. Savage Cam is the best Cam.
Hey, you prompt me right. We're gonna have a bunch of episodes soon.
Oh,
I got a lot of things to go off on. So
he's
we're
got
good.
some gas in the tank on the provocateur, okay? But we are so grateful for you. Thank y'all for being here, and we will see you on next episode.
Love y'all.
Love y'all.
See you later.
Bye.